Of all the long-distance motoring events around Australia, this is to be the longest, fastest and most taxing on cars and competitors. 20,000 kilometres in 14 days around the vast expanse of the world's largest island continent. From bull dust to sand, mud, rocks, creek crossings and even snow. From the flat of the desert to the climbs of the mountains. From the pioneering privateer to the factory-backed professionals in a wide assortment of vehicles. This is the Repco Reliability Trial. Melbourne, August 5th, 1979. 167 starters, including 24 overseas entrants. Many highly competitive, even more hoping just to make it back here in 2 weeks. Car 1, a Porsche 914 driven by Edgar Herman of Germany, with South Australian Dean Rainsford as co-driver. Herman, a co-winner of the last round Australia trial in 1970 and also a winner of the East Africa Safari. Scotsman Andrew Cowan, a favourite of Australians, winner of the 2 London to Sydney marathons and numerous Australian rallies on his many visits here. The pros all think it'll be tough. From Germany, Achim Warmbold.
From the beginning, it's just a question of surviving. Like Stuart McLeod last night said, it will be the toughest event ever. I think I've been quite a lot of times in Australia. I've done all the reconnaissance for London-Sydney rally. I've seen the desert, I know very rough roads, I know the mountain roads. I think it will be really the toughest event I have ever seen, I think so.
American Steve Meisel has shipped in a Chevy Blazer. The Californian is a champion off-road racer in the States, having his first drive in a trial. One of the favourites is Marlboro Holden dealer team Commodore Car 3, sharing the drive Finland's Rauno Aaltonen and twice winner of the East African Safari, Sheka Mehta of Kenya.
It's going to be a very different event because we don't know really what's in store for us up in the north and the west. Whereas a safari, we practice 2 or 3 times, we've got everything pace noted, every bump is known, every rock is known. Here we've got to drive it blind and assume that over the next crest there's a great big washaway.
Head-to-head against the 3 dealer team Commodores are 3 factory-entered Cortinas. The Ford team manager, Colin Bond, one of Australia's greatest all-round drivers, heads out of Melbourne in Car 4.
3, 2, 1, go!
96 kilometres out of the city at Tubarak, the first competitive section.
4, 3, 2, 1, go!
The special stage over closed roads is timed to the second. It's a sprint on tight roads, with the danger of short tree stumps hidden in the grass at the side. The task, 48 kilometres in 39 minutes for a clean sheet. Tubarak is vital. Car numbers have been allocated on the basis of performance in recognised events. Now they have a chance to work their way up the seedings, which will be all important later, when the back runners will get the worst of the roads. In Car 3, Rauno Aaltonen will drive the first competitive. He's the sprinter of the pair, although it's a hesitant start. Mehta is the man to nurse the Commodore on the long, tough sections to come.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1, go!
Colin Bond, first of the local drivers.
3, 2, 1.
Twice winner of the Australian Touring Car Championship, Peter Brock, with his familiar 05 on the dealer team Commodore. He passes Bond when the Cortina hits a tree stump and punctures. The mishap cost the Ford team leader 2 minutes 25 seconds.
Sorry.
Got both those times?
The first competitive stage sees the first retirement and some fantastic drives.
what's that, 2-4?
Yeah.
The Datsun Stanza, car 22, is one of only 3 to clean sheet the stage.
What time out?
2:48.
24-year-old Jeff Portman has beaten the best of them and gets the coveted first on the road.
46. Right. So you can go when you like.
From Tooborac, the cars head into the night towards the South Australian border. The night brings rain and mud and a certain realisation of what's in store. At the next special stage, everyone loses time. Portman wins it again with a loss of 14 seconds, from Carr with 26 seconds. So the first night claims them all. As the next morning dawns, control officials at Yamba on the Victoria-South Australia border wait for the first car. During the event, there will be nearly 3,000 people manning some 220 controls for up to 24 hours. Car 22 is still leading. The Stanza arrives at Yamba half an hour early, but navigator John Hammond still nominates their designated time in.
7:21.
7:21. Car number 22.
Portman and the leading cars are getting the best of the roads.
Right, we'll
Thank you.
22. 22 out, right? Yeah, put it got 23 out.
Where are you both?
Yeah.
Go, Matt.
Brock is next in, having overtaken Carr to be running second on the road. A fairly liberal time has been allowed through the sand flats and dunes, and the front runners are all within the time, allowing a moment to swap stories on the night's driving.
He got in front of us a couple of times. Then he had an overshoot, and we sort of snuck around the right way, and then Greg had passed us again.
But their original 2-minute intervals have become strung out, and back in the field, the later cars are in all sorts of trouble as the sandy bogs are left cut up by the leaders. Former Australian rally champion Bob Watson in the Peugeot 504 car 11 is doomed in the sand. It's the only diesel in the event and lacks the power to get him through. At one stage, 30 cars are bogged together.
What's the next one behind it?
This is what the locals have been waiting for, and their efforts are gratefully appreciated by the crews. By now, the furrows are so deep that the beautiful little Mazda RX-7 of Queenslander Charlie Lund is nearly suspended on its sump guard. And not even the considerable manpower can help here. The route is to be dotted with local farmers with four-wheel drives or tractors. Some charge, some don't. Datsun, a proven rally performer, is doing well with 3 cars in the top 10, all privately entered and mixing it with the big guns. Renmark in the South Australian Champagne country, but no time for celebration.
That's worked wonders.
Crews sort out their battered cars after a torrid first night. Bogged 3 times at Yamba, Andrew Cowan has lost 22 minutes.
I'm disappointed, yes. I thought the front-wheel drive would have been better in the sun than it seemed to be. They're just hopeless, it just stopped.
Was there anything more you could have done about it to avoid it?
Nothing. We tried everything. We tried driving through the bush. We tried charging the hills, you know, at ridiculous speeds. No, we couldn't get through it. Stupid, isn't it? Never mind. Never mind. No. We'll try again.
Former Australian rally champion Frank Kilfoyle is the director of the event.
Yes, the intention of the first night has been to give a general introduction to the trial. It's not really too hard, but they're getting a fair idea of what it's all about, what the roads are going to be like, and the fact that it's going to be pressure all the way right around Australia. We've got a few points from people, and times have been set so that we expected we get a few points from people. We've only got 14 seconds from Jeff Portman, who's leading the event, 26 seconds from Greg Carr, who's running second, and that's, I think, a fair representation of their performances through. Portman has been flying. He's been doing a wonderful job.
The battle is against the clock. 43% of the stages are competitive, the rest transports. Trial stages like this are over open roads and are timed to the minute. Sections vary in length from 3 kilometres to 550, and it's possible to lose time everywhere. The next special stage in the Kaipo Forest out of Adelaide. Jeff Portman, still the leader, and driving the Datsun like a demon. 2 secret passage controls on the section of 11 kilometres stop shortcutting. Portman, with Kenyan Shekameta, shares second fastest. Revs Rowney is 8th quickest through Kaipo, but 5th outright. Back in the field, but starting to make an impression, car 81, the Toyota Celica of Wes Nalder from Stawell in Victoria. Monday afternoon, 6th of August. The leader, car 22, the Datsun Stanza, pulls into Adelaide after 28 hours on the go from Melbourne. At the wheel, Doug Thompson, who mounted the effort from the Victorian town of Shepparton. Meanwhile, his star recruit, Jeff Portman, shows the effects of an incredible drive. The young forestry officer is the hero of the trial to date. Ford team leader Colin Bond is 4th outright, 3 minutes down on Portman. In Adelaide, the cars are scrutineered for roadworthiness. Engine and chassis numbers are checked. These are the only components which have to be original throughout the event. Here the cars go into Parc Ferme for the night. They are locked up and no servicing is allowed until 1 hour before they head off at 5 in the morning for the long haul to Perth. Early morning, day 3. Greg Carr sets off from Burra towards the Flinders Ranges. Volvo Australia boss Harry Jensen in the 240 GT. The car almost back to standard after its panel beating in Renmark. The Volvo dealers have the biggest team of 6 cars. 3 are in the top 15. Ross Dunkerton, 3 times Australian rally champion and leading this year's series, is new to Volvo. He's capable of getting extra out of what is a much bigger car than the Fords and Commodores. And speed is needed here. The stage is 182 kilometres in 2 hours. They've got to keep up an average of over 90 while opening and closing 32 gates on the way. Washaways and wildlife are also a hazard. The team who surveyed the route saw 1,000 kangaroos in one paddock alone. Peter Brock, the fastest long-distance driver in Australia, proven by 3 wins in the Hardy Ferodo at Bathurst and his domination of the Sandown 400, suited to this type of charge. Car 43, the Celica of Gosford Toyota dealer Brian Hilton, one of the best prepared cars in the field. Dusty station tracks taken at these speeds are horrific on tyres and suspension and a real test on the drivers. They have to balance their drive between speed and the need to preserve the car. Every second lost at a gate can be vital. The end of section at Menunda Homestead, and Ross Dunkerton checks into control. Once more, the task set by the organisers proves impossible to match. Dunkerton drops 6 minutes, but he's beaten by only 3 cars, Wayne Bell in the Commodore and George Fury's Cortina, who lose 5 minutes, and Greg Carr in the Cortina, who amazingly loses only 1 minute. The happy-go-lucky Dunkerton has enjoyed himself through a highly competitive stage.
Doug Stewart back in there on the side of the road. We don't know what happened to him, but he wouldn't allow us to pass. Actually, we thought he was going to put a padlock on one of the gates at one stage of the go. Now, the trick in this event is if you're following very closely and go through a gate, you twitch the wire up as much as you can because it takes so much to get the wire undone for the next car. And Doug did that to us a couple of times, so if Doug gets in front of us again, we'll have to get a pair of tin snips or something. It was very funny. Doug got through one gate, and we pulled up. We were turning the horn behind him to let us through, but he wouldn't. So we just came up and hit the gate before they'd actually had time to close it. Then the next gate was the one he twitched the wire around. So anyway, let's hope he doesn't get in front of us.
By now, only half of the 160 cars left in have passed through every control, and of those, perhaps only 20 can be considered a chance of winning. Amongst the front runners, it's become a battle of tactics. The works cars have the advantage of having teammates with them on the road. It's been another stage punctuated by 41 gates and cattle grids, and the time set is too tough. No one gets a clean sheet, but they still strive for the impossible. A car doing well is the 64 VW of Larry and Gary Perkins, sons of the winner of the first 2 Round Australias. Into Curnamona at lunchtime, having done 600 kilometres in the morning from Adelaide, Peter Brock first in. The homestead has its own airstrip, so a chance for Holden dealer team boss George Shepherd and his crew to land their plane and lend assistance.
Yeah, George?
I have an optic at the front more than anything.
Yes, there is.
It sounds like 54.
Yes!
Portman is hot on his heels, and his sterling drive with gritted teeth is rewarded by beating Brock by 4 minutes and winning the stage. The young Victorian is now after Brock's lead on the road.
We're catching on Peter at the moment too, so we're pretty pleased about that. Eating his dust. We're actually going to ask him if he'll let us out in front of him, but I'm sure he won't.
Well, I caught 4 minutes on him in the last section, so I think he ought to.
Car 9, the Cortina of Greg Carr, and his team leader Colin Bond in Car 4 have hurtled through the stage.
3, 2, 1, go!
Hardly time for a breather before once again mixing it with the Commodores. At Curnamona, Frank Johnson, a former VFL footballer, has had 6th fastest time.
Dust is not real bad because the wind is blowing strong, but the rocky creek beds, they're good fun. Especially when you get a 3-foot creek bed and about a 16-foot motor car, because they won't go across.
Car still going well?
Going very strong. Yep, going good.
Have you had a good day yourselves?
Oh yes, a lot of fun. How you going, we on? Yeah, we're on. Sorry, fellas, gotta go.
To the left. Okay.
On to Silver City, Broken Hill for a brief stopover before facing a further 1,000 kilometres overnight. Wednesday, 8th of August, the dawning of day 4. The cars have come through Maree, skipping the famous Birdsville track, deleted because unseasonal rain made it impassable.
We could have done another 200k.
I like the up the creek without a paddle bit though. Geez, it looked fantastic. Angle it was on.
At the opal mining town of Coobapedy, after 25 hours, just about non-stop from Adelaide. The course setters hadn't bargained on the blistering pace set by the leaders. They have arrived early while the field behind straggles out. With time up their sleeves, a chance to swap yarns.
Get the moon in front of us and just follow the moon. That's the only way you can keep direction.
What happened when it was daylight? Completely lost again.
You'd be mad to be out here, don't you?
Now south on a transport stage to link up with the Transcontinental Railway line at Kingunya. This is the main highway, 200 kilometres of teeth-chattering, bone-rattling corrugations. From Kingunya, the route swings west to follow the railway line to the other side of the country. The cars will hardly see bitumen all the way across the Nullarbor to Perth. Because of sand drifts on the railway service roads, cars face the possibility of long detours while making little headway. Once committed to the track, their only alternative to pushing on will be a 400-kilometre backtrack against the rally traffic to rejoin the main Nullarbor highway. More than a third will cut and run. It's a big day for the kids at Tarcoola, a railway service town. They've been given the day off to watch the cars come through the main street, the only street. A 240-kilometre stage to Imana, average speed 99 kph. The trial comes to a standstill at Imana as the crews wait for a special dump of fuel, which is nearly 2 hours late. No service is allowed, so most use the spare time for a well-earned rest. This is day 4, and they've had only one night's sleep since the start, with something like 28 hours before the next in Perth. The night ahead will be the most demanding yet. Day 5, past Kalgoorlie, and Jeff Portman has surrendered the lead after shredding 7 tyres during the night. The sensations of the Nullarbor run are Barry Ferguson and Wayne Bell, 2,600 kilometres with a clean sheet. They and Bond will be the only cars to lose less than an hour. Here's Bond, the new trial leader at Narrogin, the only special stage of this mammoth division. Bell driving Ferguson's car for the sprint stages. With Portman losing 2.5 hours, it's now the expected Ford-Holden battle. Andrew Cowan has worked his way up from 16th to 7th in a typical gritty fight back after his early letdown. But Bell leads the stage, losing only 3 minutes, 3 seconds. Ross Dunkerton, current leader of this year's Rally Championship, is the hometown boy. He knows the Narrogin roads better than anyone. The locals are out in force to see him throw the big Volvo around the 26-kilometre special stage. To the delight of the public address announcer, Dunkerton clips 9 seconds off Bell's time. But Narrogin can't believe it when Jeff Portman appears. He hurtles through the last bend, brushing off a tree, and beats Dunkerton by 1.5 minutes on a 17-minute section.
Well done, mate. Well done. Good time on that.
He's clearly determined to make up for time lost. Perth, and Bell and Peter Brock greeted by trial chairman Stuart McLeod.
I sat behind Portman for 50 kilometres and him doing 20 mile an hour. He wouldn't let me pass. We dropped 25 minutes on that.
The Commodores are being challenged by Ford, who lie 1st, 4th and 5th, separated by Bell and Brock. Colin Bond has gone from 4th to 1st, despite troubles with engine mounts and suspension.
It's all lined up.
Bondy did a wishbone before.
Yeah. He claims to have had no problems.
Well, I can tell you, he had no brakes.
Yeah.
And he's had
nothing
metal to
wrong
metal.
with the
Mate, she's had plenty of neggy.
Bush town, they weld all up for him.
McLeod, eager to hear how they coped with the torture he set them, has it all summed up by Andrew Cowan.
Hard and the rough stuff, you suffer the penalty of tyres or whatever. Have you done many?
Right. I don't know, 20 or 30 maybe. We've had more problems with wheels than tyres, you know, bending rims and change.
So you...
last night on the 364 kilometre section, 50 kilometres off the start with 2 punches.
That makes you very slow.
Really got me going.
Friday, August 10th. The Indian Ocean flanks them on the left as the cars head north through real sandgroper country towards Geraldton. Drama in the early morning. Portman has rolled his car at Wanneroo Raceway near Perth on a special stage, and Barry Ferguson storms into the lead after Colin Bond missed a turn and rolled just north of Perth. The extent of the damage to Bond's car is evident in Geraldton. The Ford leader has driven most of the way from Perth with his head out of the window. 90 kilometres north of Geraldton, Hutt River Province, a wheat farm that seceded from Australia. The currency, stamps and souvenirs pay more than wheat for Prince Leonard. The flies are free. Here, even the Australians need visas, let alone a visiting Scotsman.
I'd like to welcome you, Prince Leonard.
Thank you very much. How do you do?
Very good.
Thank you very
I'd
much.
like to welcome you and congratulate you too.
Thank you.
And but also to officially welcome you to this principality.
Thank you very much.
And in a minute, I'd like to have your visa stamped for you.
Right. Where's my visa?
Cowan. C-O-W-A-N.
C-O-W?
A-N.
And your first name?
Andrew.
Andrew.
The refuel at Hutt River is needed. It's 457 kilometres to the next petrol pump. The Rabbit Run trial stage enters real red dust territory through places like Bulladoo, Woolgoorong, Woogalong, Jingamara, Dalgaranga. It hasn't rained here for 4 years, and many cattle station owners will be out of business if relief doesn't come soon. The Fords have had a rough time since Perth. Greg Carr was nearly 1.5 hours late leaving due to work on his engine mounts. George Fury has the same problem and is spending more time on the side of the road. And Colin Bond's problems have compounded since the rollover. He and Fury are soon to start missing controls. Shekameta pressing Cowan through the dust. And still going very fast, our footballer Frank Johnson, now up into 4th place outright. Like a scene out of a John Ford movie, Kew, which was once the most important gold mining town in Australia behind Coolgardie. Here the competitors are greeted by their backup crews, and it's hard on their vehicles too. Jeff Portman's service chief, Rowan Glenn.
Well, we've had our share of flat tyres too, and we've been travelling on a lot of bitumen roads. But apart from flat tyres, that's the only problems we've had. Oh, and fatigue, we're all pretty tired at the moment.
Because you'd get less sleep, perhaps even than the drivers, who can at least have a sleep.
Well, that's right. When they come in for a service break, we've got to work on the car, and they can lie down and have a sleep for an hour or so, and we have to work on the car and then shoot off to the next service point. But, you know, we're enjoying it. We're having fun.
Dusk at the end of the 6th day, and tired crews head off into the iron ore country of the Hamersley Ranges. Under the cloak of darkness, they will negotiate the first real horror stretch of the trial. 103 creek crossings in 93 kilometres. Dry but very rocky and murder on tyres. Next morning, the Nanyeri horror stage. This is Chocolate Ruffle Pass. The flint-hard rocks defy description. Out of the car for the 30th time in 24 hours, Jim Rediex and Jeff Beaumont wearily plot a course to get the Citroën through. Andrew Cowan, in 20 visits to Australia, has never been here before and not likely to want to come back. The Datsun Stanza, still in it after the roll at Wanneroo, looking decidedly second-hand. Portman is catching up after the mishap, but no one is out of first gear through here. But the crew of Doug Thompson and John Hammond still enthusiastic. A stranded car here would likely rust and crumble like the rocks. Because of iron ore, a whole new life for the Northwest has opened up. Small air-conditioned cities have sprung up to accommodate mining and ancillary industries. The area's link with the world is nearby Port Hedland, the world's 3rd largest tonnage port. The Commodores are 1, 2, 3, Brock, Ferguson and Meta. As pre-arranged by team boss George Shepherd, the first car to reach Hedland gets the works. It's preventative medicine. GMH's budget for the trial is hard to find out, but they came in it to win, and money seems no object. They have in all 28 people travelling, 4 panel vans stacked with spares, a Commodore test car, and a plane in radio contact with drivers and service crews. It's a well-drilled unit, but out on the road, conditions and tiredness lead to mistakes from even the best of them.
I sat behind Wayne Bell, who broke 2 tyres on a rock in about the first kilometre. And he lost 10 minutes changing the wheels and panel beating them straight and everything else. He hit this rock. And so I sat right behind him all the way, and we were that far ahead of the field. I said, look, just take it real easy, Wayne, and we'll sit behind you. If you got a flat, I've got a spare. Right? So he sat there. This went on for hour after hour, and we're laughing at each other, and it was really good fun on the 2 ways. and come to a creek crossing. All these four-wheel drives are out. Commodore will get through here, no worries. There's four-wheel drive blokes are lurking around thinking, right, oh, here's some idiots in two-wheel drive vehicles. So, of course, Wayne's first in, and Wayne just bulled the gate. She's down. So we hopped out of the car for a bit of a walk and figured out a bit of a, another way around. Got through on the other side, and so we passed him, and we were he dropped 30 minutes on that stage, and we dropped 14 or 15, 16 maybe. So started the very last stage, which is a dead easy stage. It's the old highway. I just said to Barry Ferguson, this must remind you of your youth in the 1953 Redx, Barry, because you probably used this road. And of course, it's got a lot of deviations on it now, where you miss sand holes and what have you. And just as he was replying, he's gone straight into the sand hole and got bogged. So he'd be out by now, I presume. But he'd probably lose a bit of time on that section. So...
How are you feeling within yourself?
Not bad. I'm just going to go and have a shower.
George Shepherd is concerned about the other two team cars. Finally in, after dropping over an hour on the last two trial stages, Barry Ferguson.
Well, I'd say that last night was about the overall most arduous that we've had. Coming through the Hemsley Ranges, it was just incredible. The rocks were crawling on about half a mile an hour. And then to come out of there and then to go to descend, it was quite a contrast. So the overall trialling for, I suppose, the last 72 hours has been quite horrendous.
A new rear end for Brock's car in a makeshift workshop in 20 minutes. The team's effort has been planned months in advance by George Shepherd, whose father pioneered Round Australia's as managing director of Redx in this country. George has made sure the cars have parts available before they break, at regular points around the route.
Got him?
Bring it forward a bit, Brock.
Too fast.
Nestled in hills of iron ore, Shea Gap, the newest mining town of the northwest. The Lancer of Dale Loader and Ian Hill of Gosford pulls into control at Shea Gap.
4 minutes. What's your out time? 31, is it?
31, yes.
Crews can arrive at controls early and then nominate the time they are scheduled to arrive.
I'll drink the water if you're interested in the barrel just alongside.
It's the job of the navigator to calculate time and distance, and therefore average speeds, and the driver's job to negotiate the terrain fast enough to avoid penalty, but carefully enough so as to finish.
N1433?
Yeah. Up this way, rivers can be raging torrents in the wet season, but now, in late winter, being bogged in the sand is the worry. Then a long, tiresome transport stage on towards Derby. At one stage, they go 285 kilometres without the navigator having to give an instruction, apart from maybe, wake up. Saturday night in Derby. It's been nearly 40 hours since the crews crawled out of bed in Perth, and they're desperately tired. Even more in need, the two-man crews. In the German Porsche, Roland Kuschmal has driven the last leg with the instructions on his lap, while Jürgen Barth surrenders to the pain of exhaustion. But the torture is relentless. Out of Derby, they are about to go into the longest competitive stage of the Repco Reliability Trial, a 516-kilometre run across the Kimberley Ranges to Kununurra.
Shaley stuff and it's real sharp.
George Shepherd can be chirpy. He's doing the trip by air.
The Roberts Hill one. Ends with the chocolate ruffle.
Yeah, chocolate ruffle.
What's the funny thing is, those rocks looked as though someone had dug them out of the ground and just piled them in a great pile. The funny thing is, every place we go to,
good for Kellogg's.
The local says, this is going to be the worst section. See, the cars are going to fall apart on this. And everywhere you go.
Well, the locals down there
the
were
bloke here
right.
got quite upset because we said, oh no, they've been over the worst sections. Yeah, you want to bet? You wait till I see this out here.
While Greg Carr sleeps in the Cortina, navigator Fred Gacentis works on with the instructions for the delights ahead.
It'll be rough for months afterwards with hazardous crew crossing. Wildlife report. This is
This is cattle country, and actually kangaroos are still plentiful, and wild donkeys outnumber the cattle, real four-legged donkeys. As with previous stages, not all hazards are cautioned, beware. I think we're good.
What are you doing there?
The Citroen has been outstanding since Perth, working from 7th to 4th. Dunkerton's Volvo 2 has come up from 10th to 6th.
Yeah, like in the end. But then because we had no suspension, we dropped 22 on the next section. Just dawdling along. Well, we would have done that as well. Did you get clogged in the sand?
2 4 guys to pull us out, mate. Charging. No, we gave them $5 and they go back to it. 15 minutes.
Suppose you have a bath, mate.
Early leader, car 22, is now back to 7th, and Portman shows the strain, as does Max Roberts of Bega in car 87. What they've been through is superhuman. Next day, organisers are shocked by the news of a double fatality. John Fivey and Peter Harris die when their Peugeot car 91 rolls at dawn outside Kununurra. The driver, Norm Saville, is flown to Wyndham for treatment. The three had been conducting a charity drive for the Auburn Lions Club. The tragic deaths throw a gloom over the event. But for the rest, it's press on, through Kununurra, centre of the Ord River scheme, then through Katherine towards Darwin. Privateer Wes Nalder, winner of his class in the last London to Sydney. Nalder in the Celica and Dale Loader in the Lancer have kept up consistent, reliable drives on a fraction of the works budgets. Peugeot set out to prove a diesel could finish and place well. Considerable factory backing and service support sees Bob Watson up near the top 10. It lacks power, but in the current climate of petrol shortages, the Sol diesel is vindicating Peugeot's faith. Darwin, where Cyclone Tracy struck at Christmas 1974. Now they're battening down the hatches for a Parc Ferme and their third night's sleep in a week. Perhaps surprisingly, they pause to talk about the hardships and the laughs. Crewing for internationals Shekhar Mehta and Rauno Aaltonen in the Commodore, Barry Lake. For navigators, it's been extra tough.
Very tiring because you're on the go almost all of the time. There's a few transport sections where you can go long distances without needing to do any navigation, but then the drivers like to sleep then, so the navigator becomes the driver.
So have you had long stretches where you haven't had a sleep in the car?
I went from however many days it was from Melbourne to Adelaide. I think it was 2.5 days, then 3 days from Adelaide to Perth without having a sleep, which is fairly difficult.
Well, how are you bearing up under the strain? Are you making mistakes?
Yes, when it's a tight section, there's plenty to do. It's not so bad. You can get very tired and still stay on the job. But the ones that are difficult are when you get the sections that have long distances between instructions, and you tend to sort of nod off then, and always seem to nod off just before you need to tell the driver something.
Well, Porsche drivers Jürgen Barth and Roland Kuschmal look absolutely shattered, but their humour shows through their discomfort.
How's it been?
Not too bad. We really enjoy it, you know. I mean, apart that it's quite rough, or really rough. Sometimes we're sitting in the car and we really laughing because we can't believe it that it goes over there. But I would say it's really fun for us.
Have you had any trouble with the car?
Not so much. We had little troubles, but that's normal, you know.
Well, what's it like when there are only two of you? You can't have a rest while you're on the road?
No, but we're making quite a lot of jokes at Nullarbor, this piece where we have a lot of stones in the road. We started a big discussion in the car. Who puts the stones in the road? If it's the rabbits or if it's the kangaroos. So this discussion we couldn't finish because we couldn't find a solution. But anyway, the next day we found the place where they make the rocks when we had to go over them, you know. And so we keep us quite happy in the car. We don't need to sleep so often.
At Darwin, the leaders will get 12 hours rest, but the stragglers will have nearly a straight turnaround. Monday morning, day 9, and on through Arnhem Land across the Gulf country. As yet, they're still only just halfway round. The order: Brock, Ferguson, Meta, Cowan, Carr, Dunkerton and Portman. American Steve Meisel has 4 aboard the big Chevy Blazer, with only South Australian Adrian Mortimer having any rally experience. Meisel didn't know what to expect when he came here, and he can't believe what he's seen. The Blazer, which is 2-wheel drive like all entries have to be, is doing well, working its way up to the top 15. The Commodores have a handy lead. Their awesome team organisation gives no hint that they're about to fail. There are still many great competitive drives going on. The Porsche 924 of genial Jürgen Barth is the leading 2-man crew in 10th place, but is running 4th on the road, hard up against the Commodores. Victorian Gil Davis has always been up around the top 10 in his Datsun 180B. Jeff Portman has driven the car only 2 ways, flat out and upside down. His punctures on the Nullarbor were due to pushing too hard, and he's followed his roll at Wanneroo with another one in the northwest. On to the straight stretches and long distances. This is Gulf country, where the only ripple on the horizon of the mudflats is a mirage. It's a lake in the wet. Burketown is one of the most remote towns in Australia. But Barramundi is the great attraction. The fishing's great in the Gulf Stream rivers. Unfortunately for the drivers, they'll be passing through in the dead of night. Brock's car first into a passport control. The crew swathed in dust from the Berkshire roads. The locals have a gimmick of issuing passports to visitors at $5 a time. It's to draw attention to their claims that they have the worst roads in Australia, a claim that Doug Thompson would agree with.
Have a welder, would they? Electric welder.
This time of the day?
This time of the day?
It can be arranged.
Can it?
We can do anything in Burketown.
That's good, we need one.
While they're listening.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
It's a bad time and place to strike trouble, but they get help from the local shire.
Righto.
Print your name and address there for your passport and certificate, please. You got your medallion?
Yeah.
Burketown, Repco.
Oh, boy.
The worst roads in Australia.
I've got a sign there.
Greg. More weight.
"500 kilometres on, Mount Isa, Australia's largest copper mine. The Team Commodores and the Celica of Wes Nalder are the only cars to clean it across the Gulf. The rest are in varying stages of disarray. The welding done on Portman's Datsun in Burketown has broken. Now in Isa, it's to be a new rear end. While most have frantic repairs to do, some, like Carolyn O'Shaughnessy in the all-girl Fiat crew, have time for autographs, as too does Brock, the best-known face to all Australians of anyone in the event.
Last one. Last one. No, look, I'm sorry. I'm really going to go. Not really riding on that. There's your pen. See you later, kids.
Rocky in a hurry, and they all are when they get behind the wheel on this Kajabi stage, which requires 96 k in an hour, with rocky creek beds like this to negotiate. Ferguson and Brock are having quite a tussle between themselves. Nalder's yellow Celica, after a fairly undistinguished run to Perth, has really purred since and is up to 5th. The Leichhardt River is about 300 metres wide here. Bart's little Porsche, with its short wheelbase and raised suspension, has no trouble. The effervescent Dunkerton is now running fourth, but never seems out of trouble. And nothing will go right for Portman. Now with a new diff, he loses second, fourth and reverse gears. It's been one problem after another since his great start. An heroic drive to be still in 8th place.
You seem to be really enjoying it now, Dunks. You might be pleased to know we just spent a bit of time under ours too. Well, we're spending a lot more time under ours. At least you're in the shade.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
North of Mount Isa, back towards the Gulf, and a place called Bang Bang. They're a rare breed up here.
3, 2, 1. See you later.
Again, the cars head east towards the coast at Cairns. The event has been won and lost on the long trial and transport stages since Perth. The Ford flag is being carried by Greg Carr, with Bond out and George Fury having missed 10 controls. Frank Johnson's Volvo, fourth at one stage, has now missed 12 controls. Andrew Cowan's trial came to an end near Burketown when a broken drive shaft stopped him while in fourth place and challenging the Commodores. Barry Ferguson has grabbed first place away from teammate Brock into the daytime rest break at Townsville. Thursday morning, day 12. The Commodores have nearly a 4-hour advantage over the field. But it's desperately close at the top. Ferguson leads Brock by only 1 minute 4 seconds after 15,000 kilometres, with Meta an hour and a half further behind. Dunkerton is fourth and has virtually no chance of improving unless the Commodores crash out of the event. The major hardship is over and the run down the east coast should be comparatively easy. But Dunkerton and Nalda still have to hold off Carr, whose Cortina is finally over its problems and is now the fastest car in the event. It's possible for him to get up to fourth. Even on transports, Carr is mowing down the leaders, trying to be first on the road and steal some of the limelight from the Commodores. By now, Ferguson has lost his outright lead once more to Brock, who is not to relinquish it again. Jurgen Bart, in 7th place, presses on past the cane fields of northern Queensland, south to Brisbane. The Queensland capital later that afternoon, and the biggest crowd of the event turns up to see the cars during a 2-hour stop. Back in civilization, the drivers have time to reflect on what it's been like. Victorian Gil Davis.
Well, I reckon it's fantastic, Drew. I reckon that people in Australia and all over the world could not realise what sort of terrain that we have in our country of Australia. It's just been fantastic to be able to traverse the course that the director has set. I don't know where they found some of the roads and that they got them, but we made comment many a time that they just had to go out and look and look and look to find the most incredible roads they could. And the other things they put us through, they don't even put us through roads, they put us through riverbeds. They put us through one canyon over in the west there somewhere that was just like big blue boulders and that. And we were that enthused with it, we got out and took photographs of the car perched up on the top of boulders, and it's just unbelievable.
Next morning, Friday 17th, on the best roads they've seen during the event, the Newcastle Expressway, heading for Sydney. But last night they've been off the highway for most of the time in country which has made the Southern Cross Rally famous, at times reaching the peaks of the Great Dividing Range. Now to Sydney, Australia's largest city, and across the famous Harbour Bridge. First into control at Sydney Showground, Barry Ferguson, back in front on the road, but trailing Brock by 7 minutes. The Repco Reliability Trial has received huge coverage through newspapers and on radio and television, and not without controversy, with the deaths in Western Australia and some criticism of its wastefulness considering the current fuel shortage. Greg Carr in and keen for Dunkerton's 4th place. Dunk's co-driver is motoring journalist Peter McKay, a novice at this stuff.
Yes, I asked Stuart McLeod, the organiser, last night what he had up his sleeve, and he just smiled. And Stuart's a bit of a worry when he smiles, because it usually indicates that we could be in for a bit of a tough time tonight, the final night. And of course, a lot hinges on it because we're clinging onto a very tight 4th place with Greg Carr right on our hammer. Greg drives a Cortina, which is a lot quicker than our Volvo, and we could expect him to take a few points each stage off us. But Ross has asked that he wear his helmet. And when he wears his helmet, you know he's getting serious, so I might wear mine tonight.
The special stage through the forests outside the national capital, Canberra, is home ground for Carr, who absolutely tears around to win by nearly a minute despite a puncture in the last 2 kilometres. Dunkerton is 2nd and Meta 3rd. But the Commodores are being conservative, knowing they only have to stay upright to complete a clean sweep. Wes Nalder's effort has cost him $20,000, a lot, but a mere pittance compared to the work's input. His 6th place is a magnificent performance. During the night, they've skirted around the snowy mountains through Bombala and Delegate onto the Omeo Highway. The contrast in terrain is seen as the cars travel through the snow-covered Victorian Alps towards the final special stage of the trial at Beechworth. There are no major mishaps through Beechworth, and the provisional placings, which will be announced at Albury, are Brock, the winner, with a total time loss of 3 hours, 39 minutes and 18 seconds. He has only 14 minutes up his sleeve from Barry Ferguson. Then the Shecker Meta, Rauno Altonen crew making it 1-2-3 for Commodore. Not in their wildest dreams could they have imagined a better result on their motorsport debut. Greg Carr has clearly won the last third of the trial and finishes 5th. Ford will regret not having spent and researched like GMH to ensure a better chance of victory. They possibly made a mistake too in having team manager Colin Bond in one of the 3 Cortinas. With what they have learned, certainly Carr is ready to do it all again. Jeff Portman is certainly the hero. He has rolled the stanza yet again and has had to miss 7 controls within sight of the finish. It's amazing the car has made it at all, but he finishes 22nd. Ross Dunkerton is the character. His brilliant skill brings the Volvo in 4th. Ian Hill in Dale Loader's Lancer has excelled and wins the small car class, 7th outright. Wes Nalder can be delighted with his effort in bringing the Celica in behind the 5 works entries. The two Porsches of Jürgen Barth and Edgar Herman are 8th and 9th. In Albury, the scoring is checked and the results finalised. Throughout, it's been a mammoth job behind the scenes.
3:47. Shaker Maker beat him by 43 seconds. Well, that seems reasonable. Right, 11. 10:23. 12. That's odd. That's 20:38.
The competitive part of the trial is finished by Albury. Tomorrow, the cars will transport down the Hume Highway to Melbourne and the finish after 20,000 gruelling kilometres. Of the 167 starters, 92 will finish, but only 13 will have completed the whole course. Sunday, August 19th, and the three Commodores head the field with a police escort for the trip to the Melbourne showgrounds. At the finish, winners' laurels to Peter Brock, victorious over some of the best opposition and the worst terrain in the world.
World rally, none other than Peter Brock.